Kristi Noem had her Senate confirmation hearing today to be the next Department of Homeland Security Secretary for Donald Trump. I was expecting this hearing to be pretty wild, being as though Kristi Noem is a sociopath who murders her dogs, and she's also a flamethrower for MAGA. She's also another cabinet pick for Donald Trump who doesn't really care about the Constitution. All she's going to do is Trump's bidding. So I thought Democrats were going to press her a little harder, which ended up not happening. I think Senate Democrats are really waiting for the kingpin, the cult leader, Donald Trump, to violate the Constitution, and then we're going to impeach him again, and there's going to be all sorts of, that's when the rubber's really going to hit the road for Senate Democrats to really push back against Trump. So there wasn't any crazy moments, back and forth in the confirmation hearing, but Noem ended the hearing by spreading two big lies about immigration that proves that she's just going to be the mega placeholder. She's going to spread misinformation, disinformation, and lies to make Donald Trump look good instead of, adhering to her oath to the Constitution. The first lie is about the 300,000 children that went missing under the Biden administration. And the second lie is about the Trump family separation policy.
In my closing minute and a half, I just want to call your attention to an effort that I've led to help reunite children with their parents, children who were separated as a result of the so-called family separation policy in the last administration. I have introduced a measure called Keep Families Together, not only to limit separation of families at or near ports of entry, but also the Families Belong Together Act for several Congresses to help bring the children, the kids who were victims of this policy and who still are not back with their parents. I hope that you will support that kind of effort.
Senator, the Trump administration never had a family separation policy. They had a zero tolerance policy, which said that our laws would be followed. What I'm alarmed by is the over 300,000 children that went missing during the Biden administration. And when we talk about children and what they're potentially facing as far as victimization in this country and the trafficking that's going on, this administration's lack of desire to find out where those children are or what they may be going through is alarming to me. So I want to stop that.
Because my time is expiring, I'm just going to interrupt again with apologies to say, let's put aside.
Well, I can't put aside 340,000 children.
Labels. Let's put aside what happened in the past. There are still 1,000 children who are separated and waiting to be reunited. I'd like your commitment that you're going to continue the effort to reunite them with their parents.
Senator, keeping families together is critically important to me and to this country. I'm concerned about Laken Riley's family, that they no longer have her. I'm concerned about the fact that we have people in this country that don't know where their children are, or people in other countries who sent their children here and they've been lost by this administration. So yes, my focus will be to keep families together. We will uphold our law and we'll make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our children safe from the trafficking and the drug epidemic that's hit this country.
I'm going to end on an optimistic note and say I take that as a yes.
Yeah. Noem there saying, oh, we didn't separate families. That wasn't the policy. It was a zero tolerance policy. The zero tolerance policy included separating children from their parents to disincentivize migrants from crossing the border. She's just playing games with her words here. Check out this article. On May 7th, 2018, the U.S. Department of Justice announced it had implemented a zero tolerance policy, dictating that all migrants who cross the border without permission, including those seeking asylum, be referred to the DOJ for prosecution. Undocumented asylum seekers were imprisoned, and any accompanying children under the age of 18 were handed over to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which shipped them miles away from their parents and scattered them among 100 office and refugee resettlement shelters and other care arrangements across the country. Hundreds of those children, including infants and toddlers, were under the age of 5. So Kristi Noem is, of course, lying about the Trump family separation policy. Now, that is a really important thing to talk about here, that policy, because it takes us right into her next lie, that there were over 300,000 children that have gone missing under the Biden administration. Let's look at this article. When you hear the phrase missing, you think that there is a child that someone is trying to find and can't. That's not the case here. The government has not made any effort to find these children. Many of the children, experts say, may well be at the addresses that are on file with the government, but were simply unable to make their court dates. That doesn't mean something bad happened to them. It means you missed a court hearing. There are valid concerns about exploitation. We cannot, however, suggest that all 320,000 of those children are being labor trafficked. They're not showing up to their hearings because they don't trust the government that just a few years ago was separating them from their families. They don't trust the government who has people like Kristi Noem spreading lies and disinformation and misinformation about the process. So they can't trust the government to do the right thing and hold and keep their word. So again, we have Kristi Noem here lying to try to make Donald Trump appear as though he's going to be tougher on the border. And when you have people like this in positions of power, which if you've watched any of these Senate confirmation hearings, that's pretty much the line. That's pretty much the oath in which all of these cabinet officials are swearing to. It's the oath of loyalty to Donald Trump and not the Constitution. And these moments, they make it clear that Noem, Hegseth, Kash Patel, Homer Besant, the Treasury Secretary, they're going to do Donald Trump's bidding, right? Just to name a few. And when you have them spreading this information and lying about children being separated, about missing children, about the Trump family separation policy, it begins to inflame the domestic terrorists who want to try to take action into their own hands, something which Kristi Noem is going to have to deal with because that is so much more of a problem than migrant crime. And that, it's amazing that there were some Democratic senators like Slotkin, the brand new senator and former member of the CIA, who grilled Noem on domestic terrorist threats.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for our time in my office. Governor, I'm a former CIA officer, joined right after 9/11, and served 3 tours in Iraq alongside the military. I'm actually the first CIA officer in the Senate. To me, the most important thing, again, as a Democrat from a state that Trump won, right, on the same ballot, we both won, I understand we're going to have different policy opinions. I certainly understand that the president or incoming president has the right to nominate whoever he wants. Those are not the issues for me that I'm going to spend my time on. The ones that I care about the most relate to the mission of the organization when it was founded, protecting the homeland. And I think, to me, it's one thing when there's campaign rhetoric or politicization of things. Everyone does that on both sides of the aisle in this committee and in our line of work. But when it comes to actually protecting the country, you do have to be clear and honest about facts and not conflate things. So it's just important to me that I know, particularly since you do have one of the intelligence agencies within the Department of Homeland Security, that you're going to call a spade, right? The most recent acts of domestic terrorism in New Orleans, horrible incident, in Nevada, had nothing to do with migrants, correct?
Correct.
They were homegrown American citizens. One of them was actually in a very elite military unit. I mean, it's horrible. It's one of the hardest things to catch, the sort of lone wolf, radicalized American citizen. But I want to protect ourselves. Our most recent examples of domestic terrorism were not what we've spent the majority talking about today, crime from a migrant. And I don't dispute there is crime, but I just want to know, and I want to hear from you as an intelligence officer, that you're going to speak about real threats and not blow something up, politicize something, make something more exciting, because that's maybe what the president wants to hear, but your mission to protect and defend the Constitution means calling honestly what the threats are to the country. Can you just give me a yes or no, please?
Yes, Senator, I will be as transparent and factual every day with you and the American people as possible based on the information that I have. I don't know if the investigations are closed in New Orleans and in Nevada, but what we know so far and needs to be relayed to the American people needs to be the truth and facts.
She is, by lying about migrants and about the family separation policy and about kids gone missing, she is inflaming those domestic terrorists. She is giving them more reason to try to take action into their own hands. And she's also going to be the one who's in charge of trying to quell that and trying to squash that. So you have her doing both things here. And that is what's maddening about this next Trump cabinet and Donald Trump being back in office. So let me know what your thoughts are, your reflections down in the comments below of the Kristi Noem hearing if you watched it, or what you thought about her lies about immigration, and what you think about her both inflaming domestic terrorism, which she will be in charge of trying to tame. Thanks for subscribing if you haven't already. My name is Brennan Plank with Reflect Politics here on YouTube. I'll see you in the next video.